the Coventry Transport Museum. We're going to have a look at inside for the Jags while we're down in Coventry. We're going to visit the Transport Museum and see what wonderful Jags are in here. I think there's about 17. Alan's inside already looking.
Good afternoon. We're in the United Kingdom, in the city, in the West Midlands, in the city of Coventry, the home of Jaguar. We're now in the Coventry Transport Museum, lying in the heart of the city, where there is a very impressive Jaguar gallery, which we're about to give you all a guided tour. But first, in the foyer of the museum, we ran into this beautiful gold E-Type Jaguar convertible. And it's very special because, firstly, this is a 1974 E-Type, and this E-Type is one of the last 50 made and is one of the most original, and only 800 miles. It was bought by the museum direct from Jaguar in 1975 with the aid of a grant. In 1974, the price new of this car was £3,683 UK pounds. It's got a 5.3 litre engine and its top speed is 146 miles an hour. But I think it'll probably be living here for the rest of the time. And a suitable beginning in the Transport Museum, in the historic city of Coventry, Jaguar's home, to our little foray down the timeline of Jaguar. Hello, so we're now in the main Jaguar gallery at the Coventry Transport Museum in the Coventry, the home of Jaguar, here in the West Midlands of the UK, about to enter their dedicated timeline gallery. At the entrance we've noticed a Jaguar Formula One racing car dating from 2002 to 2004 period. It's certainly faster than the Jaguars I may have driven. Clearly very, very nice vehicle in partly in British Racing Green, various sponsors. But we will go into the main gallery and see what we can find. This is Sir William Lyons, the famous founder of Jaguar. His portrait and indeed his statue. Jaguar is considered to have been really the vision of one man, and Sir William guided and inspired the company for many, many decades. So, let's look at our timeline. Of course, the origins of Jaguar lay with motorcycles, and here we have a sidecar, which is a 1928 Swallow Sidecar. And the origins of Jaguar date with the sidecar manufacturer. But then they started to build a few car bodies for Austin 7s. And here we have a 1927 Austin Austin 7 Swallow. So it has a body built by the early Jaguar company on an Austin 7 chassis. And it's considered to be part of the world of Jaguar. But then we come to the real Jaguars. And isn't this a beauty? This is a 1935 Ss Jaguar. It's one of the best known and one of the most well-preserved remaining examples. It was delivered to Captain Clough in Yorkshire in 1935 and has had a fascinating history ever since. It is finished in a startling beige colour and is absolutely beautiful. The registration on the vehicle indicates registered in the West Riding of Yorkshire in the north of England. And let's move on a couple of years to the 1937 Ss Jaguar 2.5 litre. This was the first four-door car offered by the SS company. In those days, Jaguar was called SS. Ss Jaguar. Here we have a Coventry registered vehicle. It's a sedan. Dignified, finished in a resplendent black and suitably fitting for a 1930s city stockbroker or banker ad wager. and we move on. And now we have a beautiful 1953 Xk150, considered to be the first genuine Jaguar sports car. This beautiful example, finished in white, also is from the West Riding of Yorkshire in the north of England, is a hard top, absolutely immaculate. And this is the early Xj120, identifiable by its narrow grille. The later XKs, in fact, had wider grilles, and the final figures on the XJ relate to its stated maximum speed, in this case 120 miles an hour. So 10 years into XK production, and here we have a 1958 Xk150 Jaguar. Again, the 150 designation, indicating its stated maximum speed, 150 miles an hour. This example, finished in a beautiful dark blue, originally came from the county of Surrey on the outskirts of London. A beautiful car, and really the final derivation of the XK family. But let's not forget the big Jaguar post-war saloons. Here we have a Jaguar Mark V from 1949. And this, some 9,500 of these cars were built from 1949 to 1951. Again, an example from registered in Surrey on the outskirts of London, finished in a very dignified black. Again, something for the post-war professional man or successful businessman, a dignified, solid vehicle. And let's just move on just a few years to and we are about to look at a very interesting car. Here we have a lovely black Jaguar Mark 7M, the first car to be built in numbers for the United States, of which most of the production, in fact, went out to the States. This London registered vehicle dates from 1956, a solid, dignified vehicle that could be used as a family car, but also as a limousine. And also, surprisingly for its size and bulk, this car had some success on the track and places like Silverstone, being driven by, amongst others, the famous British racing driver Stirling Moss. A fine car for the successful lawyer, accountant, banker, stockbroker, or businessman. And so to the swinging 60s. And here we have a 1967 beautiful E-Type drop-head convertible in shocking yellow. Just the thing for the successful 1960s rock star to drive down the King's Road in Chelsea at the height of the Beatles mania period. One can imagine Mick Jagger himself driving such a car at that era. Very much a car of its time and a classic for all time. But for those that couldn't aspire to the sports Jaguars, there were still very fine saloons. The Mark II Jaguar, as seen in the English detective series Morse. Here we have a Staffordshire registered vehicle in a beautiful grey colour, deriving from 1969. This is actually not the Mark II, it's a similar looking Jaguar 240. This slightly more rounded back. And this is an immaculate example. In production terms, it overlapped at this stage with the earliest Xjs, but was very much a traditional looking Jaguar, whereas the Xj, I think at the time, was considered to be rather a futuristic looking car. A beautiful example here in Coventry. Let's not forget, perhaps, a less well remembered Jaguar, the Mark 10. This example dating from 1963, finished in a dark British racing green and registered in the northern English city of Leeds. Whilst it looked superficially somewhat like the Xj, there were considerable differences. It had a little identity all of its own. I always considered them to be rather staid and old-fashioned looking compared to the Xj, which came along but a few years later. But they sold well, they looked more modern than the traditional Mark II, and were the last of the line of the Jaguars which were Mark various numbers. This was Mark 10, 10 as an X as in Roman numerals. Fine car, and as I say, really, you can see the beginnings of the Xj look about this vehicle. And so to the famous Jaguar Xj. This example is a Series 1 Xj6 from 1971. The registration Fab 1 I doubt is authentic. Those Thunderbird fans amongst you may remember that was the number on the futuristic pink Rolls Royce that Lady Penelope in fact ran in both the Puppet series and the subsequent film. This clearly isn't that Fab 1. However, it's a beautiful white example of an early Xj, the quintessential car of a British managing director. And so to the Jaguar Xjs. Those fans of the New Avengers, you may recall one of the stars, Gambit, in fact drove such a car. This is a gold example, and in fact it's the 154th right-hand drive car built. It's finished in a special metallic gold paint for the 1975 London Motor Show at Earl's Court. The model itself was launched in September 1975, and it represented a step forward for Jaguar. Its first model in the International Grand Touring class. So this is a show car, immaculate, in this wonderful gold colour. And if you look closely, it has an insignia on the side of 1977 Jugular Special. This represents Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II's silver jubilee of her accession to the English throne to the British throne in 1952, and this logo has obviously been put on to celebrate that event, which happened 2 years after this car. And so into the modern era. And here we have a 1996 Jaguar Xk 4-litre coupe. This is in fact a XKR with a supercharger. This vehicle is a pre-production car which was exhibited at the 1996 Geneva Motor Show, so yet again a show car. And it was dramatically revealed from a crate as part of a press conference, reminiscent of the E-Type reveal, which also took place 35 years before in Geneva. And so to an even more modern Jaguar. This is a 1999 Jaguar S-Type. The registration, as you see, spells out S-Type. Nice registration. A Jaguar with a front which paid homage to the Mark II Jaguars of old in terms of appearance, whilst having all the latest mechanical and electrical innovations of the late 1990s.
The designer creates the idea of the body will actually interpret that. And it's something I really wholly believe in.
And here we have a 2010 Jaguar Xk150 concept car. Absolutely gorgeous. Capable of 205 miles an hour. And to some extent inspired by the Xj220. Very advanced technologically. Absolutely gorgeous. Tiny number made, a handful. Another one, this one's in silver in the Coventry Transport Museum. However, we've seen another one today of these very, very rare handful of cars. And that car is in a copper gold colour with a false Rome registration, but lives in a storage area at Jaguar's own classic restoration plant over at Whitney in Coventry. We've seen that vehicle today, but sadly, as it was held in a storeroom where no photography or videoing was allowed, we were quite unable to video it. But fear not, because I'm told it appears in the Bond film, in the film Spectre, if you want to look out for it. Identical to this one. This beautiful vehicle, to my mind, looks like a Jaguar from the mid-21st century, come back in time to amaze us. Chassis number 001, the very first F-Type Jaguar, production Jaguar ever built, in silver, and here it is. It's a convertible drop head. It sits in the corner of the museum, although I personally don't think it's a museum vehicle and would like to drive it out of the door and not come back. Absolutely gorgeous. The final car, dating from 2013, and the final car in the chronological lineup here at the Coventry Transport Museum in Coventry, England, the home of Jaguar. Beautiful vehicle, a beautiful gallery. If you're ever in the English Midlands, I would recommend you visit this place. Indeed, it's free of charge. You've just got to get here and find a parking place. We hope for your Jaguar. Thank you for listening to us, and if you want to see more, if you want to subscribe, you can look at the videos of Peter Harper on YouTube and subscribe in order to be made aware of all the videos we prepare from time to time. To be fair, we're doing more these days. Tomorrow there is a major national Jaguar event in the Midlands in England, in a place called Wroxall Hall, celebrating both the 50th anniversary of the Jaguar Xj and indeed the 70th anniversary of the Jaguar Xk. 1,000 vehicles are supposed to be there, one of the biggest events in UK history. On the main day tomorrow, although there have been smaller events today, and indeed when we visited the Jaguar Restoration Centre this morning, we found many of the participants tomorrow had arrived in their Jaguars in order to make use of a free pass for the restoration plant, and in order to look around. And we have a number of interviews we filmed this morning in connection with that, including a lovely Dutch car who has a name. Yes, she's called Penelope, owned by a delightful Dutch couple who brought it over to exhibit tomorrow, and indeed a most beautiful XK that came up from Penzance. And indeed we also extensively filmed the amazing vehicles in the foyer of the Restoration Centre, the only place, sadly, where they allow any videoing or photography. The most amazing place on earth, including the production areas which we weren't allowed to film, and the storage areas which we weren't allowed to film. There were a total of 9 XJ220s on site. I believe there are only about 312 made. There's only maybe 20 or 30 in the UK, so half of them were there today. Sadly, we can only video the couple that are on display. Thank you for your attention. Please come and visit, and please watch our videos. Always we find the most interesting Jaguar events in the whole of England.